Put this one first. You go on.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bosh P. Jordan Jr., pastor and founder of Hope Alive Outreach, and we're here today with the Hope Doctor Speaks. We want to give a message of hope to persons out there who suffer from the disease of addiction, primarily drugs and alcohol. And so tell your friends and neighbors, tell them that the Hope Doctor is on the air on Facebook and also on YouTube. You can go to YouTube under Hope Alive Outreach, and please subscribe to that. And also, please share this if you're on Facebook. And if you know of someone who suffers from the disease of addiction, or if you think that you may have a problem with drugs or alcohol, or know of someone who may have a problem, please let them know that the Hope Doctor is on the air right now, and we are attempting to give hope to persons who suffer from the disease of addiction. If you haven't gotten my book, The Pipe and the Pulpit, you might want to get that book, because it is a book that was written by an addict for addicts and for individuals who suffer from the disease of addiction. We're running a special on it this month. It's normally $11.95, but you can get it now for $7.95, and I will autograph it for you. You can go to, if you have Cash App, just go to the Hope Doctor. That's the Hope Doctor. And you can Cash App me that, and then send me your email address. Send me your address, and I will mail it to you. And so I'm just suggesting that you get that. And if you know of some persons that may possibly suffer from the disease of addiction, maybe someone who's incarcerated, and you want to send them the book, you can get that book, The Hope Doctor. Maybe that'll be the name of my next book, The Hope Doctor Speaks. But the name of the book is The Pipe and the Pulpit. So today we have a special guest, a man I've been knowing for almost 30 years, and his name is Ike. How you doing, Ike?
Basha, good evening, man. Good to be here.
I'm glad. Hey, you look good on air, man. You really do. And it's good seeing you again. Yeah,
good to be seen.
That's right. And you are a professional individual, and you've been in recovery for how long?
10 years.
10 years.
I've been clean for 10 years. I've been around recovery a lot longer, and I'll get into that during the interview. But
yes, indeed.
Just for the day, I've been clean for 10 years.
And your message of hope today ought to be not only exciting but inspirational for individuals, whether you're a professional, non-professional. A message of hope from the White House to the outhouse, from the jail to Yale. And so, just tell us, Ike, how did you get into recovery?
Well, Basha, let me give you a little background while I attempt to answer the question. I started using drugs when I was in high school. That's where my addiction really took off. I was in Catholic school after, being pushed into that by my parents because I was having problems in public school because of my behavior, and they thought that I was distracted and I needed to have a more rigorous academic environment. So the solution my parents thought was to put me into parochial school, Catholic school, and that's where my addiction really took off. I started smoking marijuana. I started drinking alcohol. I started taking mescaline and acid, all the psychedelic drugs. I was taking Christmas trees, the Tuinals, the Downers. I was taking speed, the uppers. I was smoking hash, all of that, man. I got into a whole lot of things. And that's where my addiction found its roots. And that continued. I got thrown out of high school, as a matter of fact. I had to end up going to another high school solely because of my addiction. That was my first major consequence. And so I ended up graduating from a public school, City College in Baltimore in 1973, and went on to college down at the University of Maryland, continued to use drugs. My addiction progressed, and ended up leaving there after a year because I was on academic probation. And my parents said, this is no longer a worthy investment. We're not going to send you back. And so, I ended up working. and still using drugs, you know, smoking PCP now, and still doing all the other drugs that I talked about. Just to fast forward it a little bit, I ended up graduating from Morgan in 1979. I was still using, but my drugs of choice, heroin and cocaine, didn't come into the picture until after I had graduated from Morgan in 1979. I had some cousins over in DC who were kind of one step ahead of me. Every time I went over there, they was doing something a little more than I was doing. And they introduced me to heroin and cocaine, particularly the needle. I had never injected myself with anything. And my cousins showed me how to shoot that dope, man. And I used to go over there for a while just to get that hit because I didn't know how to do it myself. But eventually I got tired of running back and forth across the road, and I learned how to hit myself. I knew where to go buy needles, you know, and I knew where to buy the dope and the coke. And so I started hitting myself, man. And that's where my disease really, really took off, man. I mean, up to that point, I was able to live a dual life. I was able to go to work and, you know, try to be responsible to the extent that I could and be an addict, you know what I mean? But at some point that recreational use became straight up addiction, man. I just lost control and ended up in treatment in 1984. That was my first time I dipped my toe in the water of recovery, so to speak. And I went into a treatment center, and that's really how I was introduced to recovery. I met two black guys in there, two brothers. I won't mention their names, but they were the first people I had ever met that had gotten off of heroin, which at that time was my drug of choice, heroin and cocaine, because I was a speedballer. So I met these two guys. I was like, wow, I never met anybody that got off of drugs who was hopelessly addicted like I was. You know, I thought I was destined to die as an addict, man. And so there began my journey into recovery, where I got some education about the disease of addiction, as you mentioned in the introduction to the program. And that was my start of trying to live a clean life.
Could you explain what speedball is?
Speedballing is a mixture of heroin and cocaine. Back at that time, you would get the little bottle cap and put heroin in there. And after you cooked it, and I hate to be graphic, but you asked me, then you would dump the cocaine in there. Not as much, because a couple of times I almost killed myself. My heart was like beating out of my chest because I put too much cocaine in there. And then you inject it. And, you know, first you feel the cocaine because that comes on right away, and then you mellow out, so to speak, with the heroin. And I just got a kick out of that high, man. I got to the point where I couldn't do one without the other. I didn't want just the heroin by itself. I wanted the high, the upper and the lower, the up and the down. So that was my drug of choice, man, doing that speedball.
You know, when I introduced you as a professional. You're a professional. I'm a professional. There are some individuals who may be listening to this broadcast who maybe they're saying, how in the world could an educated individual shoot dope, shoot heroin, go from smoking marijuana to the needle? How can that possibly happen? I only smoked marijuana and drank Hennessy. Could you explain? Could you just kind of elaborate on that just for a minute?
Sure. Yeah, on its face, that makes absolutely no sense. I came from a good family, Basha. My father was a businessman. He was in politics. He was well known in the Black community. My mother was a homemaker. I was instilled with a lot of good principles and values. I was taught to put my hands together and pray before I ate. You know what I mean? I said my little prayers before I went to bed. I was born and raised in the Catholic Church. I was baptized. I did my first Holy Communion and my confirmation, all in the Catholic Church. And as I mentioned before, for a period of time, attended parochial Catholic school. So we traveled. My father, he always used that word exposure. He wanted to expose me to the world, to let me know that the world was bigger than West Baltimore, where we lived, and that were a world of possibilities out there, man. And he told me the most important thing that I could do was get a good education. And so, but the problem, Basha, was I didn't feel good about myself. I was never comfortable with who I was. When I was a little boy, I used to steal my father's money out of his dresser drawer. My father was a bail bondsman. He got people out of jail for a living, and he kept cash in the house, man. And I found it, and I would dip in there and take money, and I would take the guys in the neighborhood to get subs. We would go to the sub shop, and I'd treat everybody, big shot. And so I thought that was the way to get friends. I had to have something. You know what I mean? I wanted you to like me. I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be a part of. And that's the only way I knew how to do it, man. It was to, I thought I needed to have something. I didn't realize that just being who I was enough. I could cultivate friends and relationships just being who I was. That was a foreign concept to me, Basha. And so those were the seeds, that sowed my addiction, that lack of self-acceptance and not feeling good about who I was. So basically, that's how it happened that I became the guy who had all the advantages as a young man growing up to being a heroin addict.
Even though you use cocaine and heroin, you consider yourself to be a heroin addict. But I would just say we are addicts,
right?
Because of what we use as far as the drugs are concerned. And toward the end there, you mentioned what I think is one of the most important things for individuals to realize, and that is we became addicted. And I don't think that I know that I didn't plan on becoming addicted. We talk about addiction being obsessive and compulsive behavior. Could you talk a little bit about that a little bit? Because not only are we trying to give individuals who use drugs some hope so they can get off, I also believe that it's important to educate other individuals who are not using, who may be parents, maybe educators who may not know about this thing called addiction.
That's a good question, man. Certainly, my parents didn't raise me to be an addict. I didn't have aspirations to be an addict growing up. I mean, I wanted to, as I said, I was instilled with principles and values and morals. And, I had goals and dreams and aspirations like most other people. I wanted to be a lawyer or a journalist or a politician or something like that. I had my sights set on those kinds of things. I did have goals, but my addiction, which initially turned out to be what started out as recreational use, I'll put it that way, ended up being addiction. I had a ball and chain around my ankle that I dragged around at all times, man. What started out as fun and games turned out to be just a horrible experience, man. Like I said earlier, there was a time when I could use drugs and still try to maintain some semblance of normalcy in my life. But once the disease of addiction took hold, as you use those two words, the obsession, the thought of using drugs, and then acting on that, the compulsion, once I started and I couldn't stop, that just absolutely ruined my life. They say in the law that the law is a jealous mistress. She deserves and wants all of your time and attention. If you study to be a lawyer, you got to devote your entire everything to it. And so it goes with addiction. Addiction is a jealous mistress too, man. I'm telling you, she took everything from me, man. That was the only relationship that I could honor was my addiction, man. She wanted attention. She wanted to be fed every day, all day long, man. I mean, my whole world ended up being about this big, man. My whole world was nothing but the people, places, and things that revolved around getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. If you didn't do that, I had no use for you in my life because I didn't do anything but that. So yeah, it's a horrible, I went into some dark places with it, man. That's all I can tell you.
You mentioned, you talked about addiction as though it was a person. What she did, I can recall after I got into recovery, I began to refer to cocaine, which really brought me to my knees, as that white girl. Mm-hmm. Gave cocaine a personality, and so did you, and our addiction becomes our best friend and our best enabler. Now, as far as recovery is concerned, and those who are listening today, if you have a question that you'd like to pose, we'd like for you to just put it up on the screen, and we'll try to entertain that question. I'm glad there's Betsy Bentley is on there, Kay Adler, some people who know you are watching today, and also others. But if you do have a concern, a question that you'd like to have answered, please pose it, and we will try to answer to the best of our ability. Tell us what happened that you got into recovery.
Well, like I said earlier, I was introduced to recovery in 1984 after going through a treatment center. And I tell you, all of these things that I'm talking about now are in hindsight, but I was compliant. I didn't know anything about the concept of surrender, giving up the fight. I was very compliant. I said everything that I was supposed to say in the group sessions in the treatment center and so forth and so on. I did what I thought the counselors wanted me to do because I thought I was in school and I was going to pass or graduate or whatever the case may be. So I said and did what I thought they wanted me to do so I could, get a good grade, so to speak. But I didn't realize I was just fooling myself. The concept of surrendering to the disease of addiction, as we talk about it in step one, was totally just went over my head, man. I'm like, how do you surrender? How do you give up? I don't understand, because deep down inside of me, I still wanted to use, man. And ultimately I did. I stayed, when I got out of that treatment center, I stayed clean for 90 days. And as soon as I got my income tax check, and money is a trigger for this addict, I went right out and got high, man. I was right in a recovery meeting in Narcotics Anonymous. And, as you know, Basha, at the end of the meeting, they usually ask, is there anybody in here today who feels like they're going to use? Raise your hand. And I just couldn't get my hand up, man. I had that money in my pocket because I had already decided what I was going to do. Honesty wasn't a part of my program. I didn't have the capacity to raise my hand and honestly share where I was at, that I was about to go out and use, man. And so I went out and used. As a matter of fact, I ended up in a shooting gallery with an NA t-shirt on. I had come from a meeting, still had the shirt on, and went and copped and went on North Avenue. And I was sitting in the shooting gallery with that shirt on with a needle in my arm.
That's something.
Yep.
That within itself shows the power of addiction. And also how we have no control. In the basic textbook of Narcotics Anonymous on page 20, under the first step, it says, most addicts will see that control is impossible the moment it is suggested. Whatever the outcome, we find that we cannot control our using for any length of time. I'm gonna make a statement, and I'd like for you to elaborate on it. There is an unseen power that operates in a meeting. Could you elaborate on that, what I'm talking about?
It's a power greater than ourselves, man. We talk about that in the subsequent steps in Narcotics Anonymous. But one of the powers that I have found to be greater than myself is the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, the other addicts. They say, and this is an old saying, it's in the book somewhere, that we can do together what you and I could never do alone, man. I have never, ever successfully stayed clean by myself. The disease of addiction is very isolating, man. It ruined all my relationships, friends, family, neighbor, employer, girlfriend, whatever. Everything gets tossed to the wayside, man. And I sacrificed it all for that jealous mistress, the disease of addiction, man. It's a bottomless pit, man. The disease of addiction, at least in my experience, has an insatiable appetite, man. Never satisfied. Like they say, one is too many and 1,000 never enough, man. I could never get enough, man. You know what I mean? It was like a bottomless pit, man. You just keep filling it and filling it and filling it. And the more you fill it, the more it wants. It never gets satisfied, man, until you pass out at the end of the night. Next morning, I wake up, I'm completely obsessed with the thought of getting high because I have to, man. I'm sick. You know what I mean? I need that fix, man. And so that's all my thoughts and all my time and all my energy were devoted to getting and using and finding ways and means to get more, you know. Once the disease of addiction takes over my life, I can't do anything else, man. I can't be a friend. I can't be a good son. I can't be a good neighbor, a good, uncle or nephew or whatever the case may be, employee. I can't do nothing. Can't be a good businessman. You know what I mean? I can't do any of that, man, because of the disease of addiction won't let me. I've completely lost the power of choice, and all my decisions are dictated by what my addiction tells me to do. Get up in the morning, what to wear, where to go, who to hang out with, going out and stealing, whatever you got to do. I've lost control. The power of choice has left me, man. And so I'm truly powerless, helpless, and without authority, as they say,
One of the resources that we have is a sponsor. Would you share a little bit about the importance of sponsorship and what it is?
Over the years, I've had my first sponsor, Novell, as you know, Novell, he passed away. And we ended up, as I look back again, this is hindsight, we ended up being more friends than we were sponsor and sponsee. And so I found that doesn't work. A sponsor is solely responsible for guiding us through the steps of Narcotics Anonymous, man, and sharing his experience, strength, and hope. He's not a marriage counselor. He's not a guidance counselor. He's not a financial advisor, although I can get advice from my sponsor on those things if he has experience in that area. But first and foremost, his primary purpose is to guide me through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, help me to see the spiritual principles that are embodied in our steps and to learn to live those on a daily basis. Because as they say, this is not just a stop using program, it's a start living program. And my sponsor, who I have the utmost respect for today, I have a great sponsor that works with me very well, helps me to, he's the kind of guy, this is my experience, we don't commiserate on the problem too much, man. We don't stay on that too long. We go right to the solution. Okay, I understand the problem, Mike. What's the solution? Because today we are living in the solution. We all know what the problem is. You know what I mean? I was an addict. My life was unmanageable. So, okay, what do you do about it? And so as he's always told me, there's 2 surrenders in the first step. One, you got to surrender to the disease of addiction. Ike, you fight the losing battle. You can't win it, man. Look at your track record. Have you ever won it? Have you ever been able to control drugs in any way? And like it says in our literature, the illusion of control must be shattered, man. And when I look at my track record, honestly, open-mindedly, I can see that I have never been able to stop using drugs on my own. Once I start, man, once I open Pandora's box, man, it's the ball game. So, my sponsor, has me to focus on them things on a daily basis, man. Every morning I get up and there's another surrender. I said, God, help me to stay clean and sober today. You know what I mean? Help me to keep my priorities in order and keep my recovery first. Help me to accept the full measure of my disease, obsessive thinking and compulsive behavior, because the disease of addiction goes well beyond the drugs, but we won't get into that right now. My primary purpose is to stay clean at a day at a time. And if I do that, man, I got a fighting chance to address all the other issues that I have in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you touched upon how our problem is the disease of addiction. And I will just say that drugs or alcohol are just a symptom. Could you touch upon the fact that even though we can be drug and alcohol free for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, but still the disease of addiction can manifest itself in other areas of our life?
Sure. Initially I thought, and this was obviously was a mistake, that all I had to do was stay clean in Narcotics Anonymous. If I didn't use drugs, if I could master staying clean a day at a time, then I could do anything else that I wanted. I felt like that's enough, isn't it? Well, no, it's not. As I found out, the disease of addiction can manifest itself in a lot of ways in my life. It can be gambling. I don't gamble, but it can become a problem. Gambling, sex, pornography, spending money. You know what I mean? Overeating, especially sweets and fatty foods, and anything that makes me feel good, looking for that instant gratification, the same gratification that I got when I put that needle in my arm and I felt that heroin and that cocaine. I sometimes can fall victim to seeking that gratification in other things, and now I'm getting a deeper understanding of the disease of addiction. Like I said, I always ask God to help me to accept the full measure of it, which is obsessive thinking and compulsive behavior. Sometimes once I get an idea in my head, Basha, I can't get it out of my head until I act on it, man. I just can't stop thinking about it. And that's why I know that lets me know that I am truly an addict and that my problems go well beyond just using drugs or not using drugs. So if the disease of addiction is more than just using drugs, then my recovery has got to be more than just staying clean. And I didn't learn that until the recent past, man. Like I said, I always look for the easiest, softer way. I'm thinking, all I got to do is stay clean and then I can do what I want. I can go pick up girls on the street. I can do this. I can do that. As long as I stay clean, it's okay, ain't it? No, it ain't okay. It ain't. Believe me, it ain't.
It's amazing. It's amazing how we still have things to learn. I'm Dr. Basha P. Jordan Jr., the pastor and founder of Hope Alive Outreach, and I'm here today bringing a message of hope by having our guest, Brother Ike, and he's talking about his experience as a practicing addict and also his experience as an individual who is alcohol and drug free for the past 10 years. Now, if you suffer from the disease of addiction and you want some help and some hope, you can call me. We can somehow or another get together, and because I have been a trained consultant and licensed clinician, my phone number is 443-250-9635. That's 443-250-9635. If you need some help immediately, we have the telephone number of the Narcotics, a 12-step program, Narcotics Anonymous, 1-800-317-3222. That's 1-800-317-3222. If you prefer Alcoholics Anonymous, we have a local number for those of you all in Maryland, or you can look it up on the World Wide Web at AA.com or alcoholicsanonymous.com. But here's a telephone number for those in Maryland, 410-663-1922. That's 410-663-1922. And I would also ask that those of y'all who are on Facebook to please share this because you never know who might be in need of this. And those of you all who can go to our YouTube channel, Hope Alive Outreach, and also subscribe to that so we might be able to help many, many, many more people. There are some persons out there right now who are still using. They may be using the needle, they may be smoking the pipe or whatever, but they want to get clean, but they just don't know how. I want you to give them some hope.
I thought I would never get clean, Basha. I mean, like I told you earlier, I had never met anybody that got clean until I went into treatment back in 1984. The Narcotics Anonymous, my opinion, is the way up and the way out of this, man. You can get clean. A situation that seems hopeless is not hopeless, man. There is hope in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. There's, you got thousands and thousands of people, not only in this country, but around the world who have gotten the message of recovery, man. Like they say that an addict can lose the desire to use and stay clean a day at a time, find a new way to live, man. Don't give up, man. If you need help, if you know or suspect that you have a problem with drugs and alcohol, you're suffering, there are a million resources in the community. There are treatment centers. There's your local health department. You can contact the Narcotics Anonymous hotline. We can get you plugged into resources if you need to go into treatment and detox. I've done it more than once, so I've been in more than one treatment center, in my experience in recovery. So the help is available, man. I mean, Bosch had mentioned it earlier. There's a serious problem in our country today, especially with fentanyl. People are dying on the streets of Baltimore and all over the country because the drugs that they're selling today are made in a laboratory somewhere. They're not even growing poppies anymore. They're just going into the labs and making up this fentanyl. And it's an extremely dangerous and deadly drug. You putting your life in your hands every time you put it in your body. I did the same thing. Fentanyl wasn't on the street when I used, but every time I put a needle in my arm or put a pipe up to my lips, I was taking my life into my own hands. And like I said, I never thought I would get clean, especially the last time that I got clean a little over 10 years ago. I was just out there, man. I was on a mission, a course of self-destruction, and I just did not know if I would ever, make it back into recovery. And I begged and I pleaded and I asked God. I said, I just want to wake up one day without this obsession to use drugs on my mind. Can I just focus on something else? Lord God, help me to remember what it feels like to be clean and to have a clear mind and a clear spirit and a clear conscience, man. Help me, relieve me of this obsession. I can't, this is crazy, man. Once you got a taste of recovery, man, the using, it didn't work no more. It didn't work no more for me, man. I knew I was living foul, you know what I mean? And that, eventually it was all going to come to an end. Either you're going to die, you're going to go to jail, something bad is going to happen. It always does. Jails, institutions, and death. That's right. That's the only way you're going to go. That's it. So
I heard you mentioned God, and you mentioned prayer. Talk about that in your 10 years of being clean. How has that been important in your recovery?
My current sponsor, I used to pray, but I never really, and I was raised in the Catholic Church, and my mother taught me how to put my hands together and say grace before we ate and say my little prayers before I went to bed at night. So I was introduced to religion at a very young age, but the program of Narcotics Anonymous is not a religious program. It's a spiritual program. We don't adhere to any particular dogma or ask you to believe in any particular thing. The only thing that we ask is that you develop a relationship with a power greater than yourself. You can call it God, you can call it Jesus Christ, Allah, and whatever works for you. That's the beauty of this program. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We all have different ways of coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves. My sponsor told me, he said, Ike, the most important relationship that you will ever develop in recovery is your relationship with your higher power. And I have found that to be absolutely true. I get on my knees every day, man, and ask God to help me to stay clean, help me keep my priorities in order, keep my recovery first, help me to get to a meeting today, help me to reach out to another suffering addict, help me keep my priorities where they should be, help me keep my mind where my feet are, right here and right now. That power greater than myself is my source of strength. That's what allows me to stay clean a day at a time. Because like I said, we can do together what you and I could never do alone. I need that power greater than myself because the disease of addiction is a power greater than myself. It completely consumed my life. So in order for me to stay clean and recover, I also need a power greater than myself to help me. And when I tap into that through prayer and meditation in our 11th step, man, there's a tremendous peace knowing that God is in charge. I'm not running nothing, man. I thought I was running something. I thought I was slick. Nah, man, you ain't running nothing. And the sooner I tap into that, the greater I find the peace and serenity and what I'm experiencing right now in my life, man. Everything is nice and smooth because I didn't surrender it, man. I didn't gave up the fight. Let God handle it. He got a plan better for you than anything you could ever think of for yourself. So just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride.
Byron is listening, and Byron says that higher power, he says, coming to believe is also a process. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely, man. Everything in recovery is a process. Going to a baseball game or football game or a music concert, that's an event. You go to it, you enjoy it, and it's over. But if you look at everything in life as a process, growing up is a process. Surrendering to the disease of addiction is a process. It's not something that happens overnight, man. And as my old sponsor, Novell, used to tell me, he said, Ike, we become good at the things that we practice. So the key is to practice that every day. And the more I practice it, the better I get at it, man. Just letting go, man. Just like sometime I heard a guy say in a meeting just the other day, he said, God, keep your hand on my shoulder and your hand over my mouth. Be quiet, sit back and listen. They say it's better to be humble than to be heard. You know what I mean? Just sit back and relax and observe, man. And when I tap into that God, man, that power greater than myself, like I said, I get a peace. There's a comfort knowing that, like, I'm gonna be okay, man. Look at your track record. God has brought you a long way, boy. And if you continue to believe in him and trust him, all will be well. All is well.
Yeah.
You're living a good life. You got peace and serenity in your life. You got friends, you got family, you got your health, your bills are paid. What else you want? God has blessed you beyond belief.
This COVID-19 has changed the process of recovery. There are a lot of people dying, especially here, in St. Petersburg, Florida. They're dying. I've seen many individuals who are relapsing. And you mentioned fentanyl. Fentanyl is out there. It's killing people. Also, not only do I attend NA meetings, but also attend AA meetings. I got an NA home group and an AA home group, but people are relapsing back on alcohol. So I've read some statistics where alcohol consumption now is up 400%. How do you manage to stay clean and sober in this pandemic?
That's a good question, man. As you know, this thing all started like back in March. I remember my sponsor calling me. He said, "Hey, man, our home group is not meeting until further notice. We still haven't met in person, man." And then the Zoom platform popped up. All these Narcotics Anonymous meetings ended up being on the Zoom platform. And that's the way I have found to get clean or to stay clean a day at a time. There's I think as last count, about 1,100 meetings on the Zoom platform, not only in the United States, but all over the world, man. Zoom, in my opinion, is one of the best things that's ever happened to Narcotics Anonymous because it has unified our fellowship in a way that I have never seen. I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet people from all over the place that had it not been for this pandemic, otherwise I would have never met them, man. Again, a power greater than ourselves. The pandemic has brought this fellowship together, man. I mean, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home to get recovery. You can get on their meetings on 24/7. I know of at least 2 marathons that are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You get up 3 o'clock in the morning, can't sleep, you can get on a meeting. You can get on a meeting at lunchtime. You can get on a meeting at dinner time. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are sharing their experience, strength, and hope online, man. It's like, to me, because I'm a learner. I like to learn. I love to learn, man. As a matter of fact, when I go to meetings, I take notes of good things I hear people sharing, man. And so to me, this Zoom thing is like being in school. It's like online learning. You can take as much or as little as you want from it, man. You can stay on here as long or as little as you want to. It's all up to you, man. It's really, in my opinion, this pandemic has empowered us. This Zoom platform has empowered the addict to take responsibility for his own recovery, man. You know what I mean? There's no excuse not to get to a meeting today. Now, I understand that some people haven't fully embraced this, Basha, but in speaking to the many addicts that I do on a regular basis, most people have adapted to it. You know what I mean? And they like it. Some people don't. I understand that. But me, I love it, man. I love it.
Well, being addicts, it should not be difficult for us to adapt, because if I couldn't get some Coke, I would get some dope. If I couldn't get some Hennessy, I'd get some gin. So, you know,
Something.
whatever I needed to get so I could feel better, you know, so I wouldn't feel what I was feeling, I would get it. And that's the same way it is, I believe, in the meetings. How if there's persons who want to find these meetings on Zoom, tell them how they can find them.
There is, I'm trying to think of the name of the website, and I'll pull it up eventually. They have a zoom.org or Zoom. I'm trying to think of it. If you go on Facebook on NA Quarantine, it's called Quarantine to NA, you will see all the meetings, man. The schedules are on there of all the meetings around the world. And you can get on. They have the Zoom numbers for each of the meetings, and they have the passwords. Some of them have passwords that you have to put in order to join the meeting. But that's the place I would, and I have to look it up on my device here, Basha, and give you the exact. There's Google Docs. They have all these meetings there. It's a whole schedule. Like I said, it's like 1,100 meetings on there, man. And so you can go on there. But virtualna.com, I think or .org is a website. It's, you know, right on the fellowship. If you go on na.org, it will direct you to the online meetings, because that's where 99% of our meetings are being held right now. I've been told, and it's my understanding, that there are some in-person meetings that have started to meet, but the overwhelming majority of meetings are still on the Zoom platform. That's where you're going to find the help that you need. Like I said, you got meetings. We got an international marathon that runs 24/7. We got a meeting out of New York called Never Again. Never Alone, Never Again, out of Long Island, New York, runs 24/7. I mean, there are hundreds of meetings, over 1,000 meetings. I go on to a meeting on 10 o'clock every morning called Conscious Contact. It's an 11th step meeting out of Las Vegas, Nevada. It's between 600 and 700 people on that meeting every day, man. And the whole goal is to help the addict develop and nurture a relationship with a power greater than himself. And we do a 5-minute meditation, and the person speaks on the 11th step. And it's a beautiful thing, because you listen and get the experience of others who have developed and cultivated a relationship with a power greater than themselves, man. Like I said, I need to listen to y'all, man. You know what I mean? To figure out how to do this thing, because I ain't got the answers. I don't know. That's why I go on our meetings and get my education. This is my medicine, Jack.
That Zoom, .us, zoom.us, yes, is the way we get on. But also, I'm on my app now. I have an app. It's called NA, and if you go to your app store, it's blue and white with the letters NA. It's in white with a blue background, and on there's a meeting list, update a meeting list, the data, and at the same time, you can get many meetings there. Okay, as we get ready to come to a close here today, I want you to give somebody some hope out there. Somebody who they want to get clean, but they're afraid to give up the dope to get the hope. Give them some hope, please.
Hey, man, I was afraid too, because I had lived since a teenager, getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. And of course, I was very fearful about getting clean. It's like, I've never been clean before. What am I going to do if I don't get high? How am I going to have fun? How am I going to dance and talk to women, do this, that, whatever? Hey, man, I'm telling you, it's a heck of a lot better on the other side. At least it is for me. And if you come into recovery, you will find out the same thing, man. You know, whatever fears and whatever, reservations you have about getting clean, cast them aside, man, and come in and have some faith in us. There are thousands and thousands of people like myself, like yourself, who have gotten clean, man, who came into these rooms hopelessly addicted. No clue as to how to stay clean a day at a time, man. But I'll tell you, it's worth every minute of it. It's not always easy, but it's the best thing you could ever do for yourself. You saving your own life, man. You're only gonna, the disease of addiction, it only gets worse, man. It never gets better. What you're experiencing right now, this is as good as it gets, man. It's all downhill from here. You know what I mean? It ain't nothing to look forward to. You know what I mean? You come into recovery, you'll have a fresh perspective on life, man. Your thinking will change. The obsession to use drugs will be lifted. Lost dreams awaken, new possibilities arise. A whole world of opportunity will open up, man, if you just give yourself that chance.
How has your life changed since you've been clean now?
Basha, man, I got friends today. I've renewed old friendships. I've made new friendships. I've mended relationships with my family. Taking care of myself in terms of my health. I'm no longer obsessed with the idea of getting and using drugs, man. Now I can start focusing on hobbies that I like, traveling, listening to music, going out to dinner. I couldn't rub two nickels together in my addiction, man. All my resources went to drugs, man. Today, I don't live like that no more, man. You know, I get to feel good about who Ike is. I get to look in the mirror and kind of like the guy that I see in the mirror, man. You know what I mean? So there are so many benefits to not using drugs, man. I get to live in my own home today and have my bills paid. Couldn't do that when I was using, man. Cars repossessed, homes in foreclosure. You know, I don't live like that today, man. I have peace of mind. And most important of all, I get to live by the values and the principles and the morals that my parents instilled in me, because that's the person that God intended me to be. The person that the child that my parents raised is a person that I am today. You know what I mean? And I honor their memory by living according to the principles and the values that they instilled in me as a child, man. I get to be comfortable in my own skin and to feel good about who Ike is. That's a blessing. That's all I ever wanted, man, was to feel good about who I was. And recovery has given me that and many more gifts.
There's nothing like a personal testimony. Brother Jesse Owens is watching and listening. He says, Dr. Jordan and Ike, I want to thank you guys. He said, I got some help today.
Good.
And he also says, sometimes I need some help. Thank you guys. You know, sometimes all of us need some help, Jesse. You know, and no matter who you are, and no matter how much clean time we have, or no matter how many times we've fallen or how many times we've gotten up, we can always learn something from somebody else. Isn't that right, Ike?
Absolutely, man. The greatest gift in Narcotics Anonymous is one addict helping another. It's without parallel, man. People, doctors, lawyers, preachers, counselors, judges, they don't understand us because they look at us and they say, you're crazy, man. Well, who does this? But we understand, man, because we have the lived experience.
That's right.
We know. We don't, like they said, we don't eat our wounded. We don't kill our wounded, man. You come in here wounded, man, you're going to heal. We're going to put you back together, Jeff.
That's right. That's right. Ike, thank you so much for being a guest today. I want to thank all of those who are listening today. Please don't forget to share this on your Facebook platform. Also, go to our YouTube page, and please subscribe to that page so that we might be able to help more persons who are addicted. And so if you want to get in contact with me, I can be reached at 443-250-9635. If you want some counseling, I'm also an ordained minister. I've been a minister for 44 years, and I also do weddings. So if you want to get married, then I can also do that. But more importantly, I'm Dr. Jordan. And remember, there's one other thing. Don't forget about my book, The Pipe and the Pipe and the Pulpit. And that book was written. I wrote it so that I might be able to give hope to persons who suffer from the disease of addiction and their families. And so if you have a family member, somebody who's incarcerated, and you want to get this book, you can Cash App me at the Hope Doctor. This month we have a special, $7.95. You can get that book, and I will autograph it for you. But send me your address to my email address there, and that's info@hopealiveoutreach.org. info@hopealiveoutreach.org. I want to once again encourage all of you all to just stay clean just for the day. And I want to thank Ike for being here with us today. Thank him. Where's Ike? Bring Ike back. Yeah, Ike, thank you so much again for being here and sharing. Sharing. It helps. We had the same sponsor. Novell was my sponsor for 15 years, and even down toward the end, I was right there with him. He died clean, died sober, he was. All of us need somebody. We can't do this thing by ourselves.
No, we can't.
All right, I'm Dr. Jordan, and remember, no matter what's going on with you today, there is hope for you. I'm the Hope Doctor. Have a great day.